Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us today for another program preview for the Master of Science in Innovation and Venture Development. MSIVD is a brand new master's program starting this fall 2020 at Arizona State University through a partnership between the Ira A. Fulton Schools of Engineering, the W.P. Carey School of Business, and the Herberger Institute for Design and the Arts. My name is Jackie. I'm the graduate coordinator for the MSIVD program. I'm here to answer any questions that you have throughout the admissions process, and I'll be serving as an academic advisor to students admitted to this program as well. I'm going to get started today just running through a brief agenda of everything that we'll be covering. In just a few minutes, I will introduce you to Cheryl Heller, our program director, to give you more of an introduction to the program. She'll then introduce you to Robert Auray, who will be discussing with you 3 keys to innovation. I will take a few minutes towards the end to just go over the specific admission requirements and what you can expect from the application process for this program. I'll also have some information for you about tuition and financial aid as it pertains to this program. And then we should have a few minutes towards the end for a Q&A. So throughout the presentation, if you have any questions about anything that any of us have covered, please do leave your questions in the Q&A portion of the Zoom webinar, and we will get to all of those towards the end. So right now I'm going to turn things over to Cheryl Heller. She is the program director for MSIVD. She's also the director of design integration at ASU, which is a position within the W.P. Carey School of Business, Ira A. Fulton Schools of Engineering, and the Herberger Institute for Design and the Arts.
Thanks, Jackie, and welcome everyone. We're really excited about having Bob here today to talk to you, and I just wanted to take a minute or two to give you an overview of the program first, and particularly why we think that this program is more important and more needed now than ever in these unprecedented times. That we need an unprecedented type of program to prepare leaders for the future. You're going to hear from Bob, and one of the truths that everybody who's lived and been successful knows is that having ideas really is a very small part of what it takes to succeed, and it's the skills that are important that you will use for the rest of your life. So we're focusing on helping students learn how to frame challenges, not just for current state, but in their emerging future context, which means learning to solve the right problems. We're also focusing on teaching people how to learn so that the skills that you gain in this program, you'll be able to use for the rest of your life. Integrating multiple perspectives, leading and facilitating processes. It's not enough for you to be able to do something. You have to be able to lead a team and facilitate a team toward a particular outcome. And communicating at multiple levels. Communication now is 50% of any team member's job, and it's going to become even more important. We just found out today that the Tempe campus will be open in the fall. So we will be moving into a brand new, beautiful space that's been designed expressly for this program to facilitate collaboration. And we are really proud of the network of industry leaders and advisors that are have been willing to help with this program. In particular, I am really honored that Bob Auray, who I met at the W.P. Carey School of Business's Dean's Council, from the first time I met him, was filled with ideas and has been enormously helpful in the development of the program so far. He's had an exciting career that he's going to tell you about, and have lived all the things that we need to know and is willing to continue to share his wisdom. So thank you, Bob, and I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Cheryl, and thanks for the kind remarks, and welcome to all of you out there in webinar land. It's a real pleasure and honor for me to share some thoughts with you about innovation as I've come to learn it, and how excited I am about this new program that ASU is launching. Next slide, Jackie. So just a quick background on me. I graduated from Princeton way back in 1973. I got an MBA in accounting and finance at NYU in '77, and started out my career on the audit side of KPMG. Along that line, I realized that that was not where my career was destined, but was a great foundation in terms of financial analysis, and I got exposed to some other interesting ideas back in KPMG. I went to then American Can Company, first in the corporate strategic planning group, and I'm going to share with you a real innovative project that I had the good fortune to be a part of back then, and from there migrated into a business unit, which my business partner, president, and I as CFO grew significantly over that time frame. And then from there got more entrepreneurial, first with a business process outsourcing play with a company called Entex, which was an IT business services outsourcing company providing PC support services and PC distribution for Fortune 500 companies. From there, moved on to a third-party logistics, privately held third-party logistics company called USCO, which I was fortunate enough to be CEO of for 9 years. We grew that very nicely, and it was purchased by Kuehne + Nagel in the year 2001. I stayed on for a few years and then left to join a company called Genco. They became vice chairman, built that company up, and we sold that to FedEx about 5 years ago in 2015. I actually represented the company as the vice chairman in the sale to FedEx. And I retired, and since then have been involved really in investing in promising ideas that I think have big upside potential, make the world a better place. And there's an opportunity for me to mentor the young CEO to help them realize their dreams. And I co-invest so that if they realize their dreams, I realize some dreams as well. The one thing you will not see on here is a master's in innovation. Innovation has been a constant within my career, but the school I graduated from was the School of Hard Knocks. And I wish that a program like the MSIVD program existed back in the day. And when I first, as a member of the Dean's Council, became aware of it, I became very enthusiastic, maybe too enthusiastic at times, but really trying to help Cheryl build a great program for hopefully all of you to be a part of and launch. So next slide, Jackie. That's a little bit about me. Now, I just want to share these three thoughts because when I think of innovation, and again, from my experience, and there are different points of view, but I think there are three critical components that drive innovation. The first is having the vision to see some kind of an unmet need. And hopefully it's a need that means something to you, that resonates in you, in your soul, because that's gonna kind of be the fuel that'll keep you going. So that vision thing is very important. The second is then having the imagination to see a solution to that need that really doesn't exist today, and really distinguishes itself from what other options might be out there. And then the third element, and I think the most important and oftentimes most overlooked, is the determination to succeed. Because innovation is not a straight line stairway to heaven. There are bumps and bruises along the way. There are moments of discouragement, but the determination is what keeps you, picking yourself up, dusting yourself off, and going back at it. And I've heard a line that the only failed ideas are ones where people give up. So I do think that that's real important to stress: patience and determination. Jackie, next slide. So I'm going to share with you now three examples kind of from my career, and they're really, I have a large company, mid company, small company, but they're also early in my career, mid-career, and late in my career. And innovation is something that has really engaged me and motivated me throughout my career. And I was probably instinctively drawn to it early on. And I think one thing it's important to know about yourself, are you driven that way? Because I think to be a successful, true entrepreneur, it has to be in your soul in a way. You have to be drawn for these kinds of things. The risks cannot deter you. So let's go on to the first one here, Jackie. This was drawn from my early days at American Can. And most of you don't know what American Can even is probably, but 100 years ago, packaging was really a high technology business. Because when you think about it, packaging enabled us to move away from the ability to package food and distribute it throughout the country really helped fuel the growth of our big cities. Well, that was in the 1900 to 1920 type range. But by the late 1970s, American Can and its packaging activities had gotten pretty mature. It's a slow growth company, and a new CEO came on board and said, we need to transform ourselves from a collection of manufacturing businesses, primarily packaging based, but manufacturing based, into something that translates more to where he saw the economy going, which was more service based. And keep in mind, this was in 1979. This was a pretty visionary kind of guy. I was in the corporate strategic planning group. So it was his vision that our team really helped imagine how to realize it. And the first thing we did was lay out a framework to look at the 30 plus business units that were constructed American Can in those days. And again, American Can was a Dow Jones 30 company in those days. So it was still a very big, powerful business. But what we developed a framework along industry attractiveness and competitive positioning, and mapped out which were the businesses that made sense to invest in, which were the businesses to kind of monitor, and which ones were the ones to divest. And we then used that to create a cash hoard to determine where to invest. And we really ran a trap on services businesses, and we're particularly from an acquisition target looking for services business where there was a slow growing leader, but innovators who are growing significantly faster than the leader. And we felt that was an industry composition and an acquisition target base to kind of go after. And the net after 3 years was we identified financial services as a place to go, began investing there, divesting of packaging and other manufacturing holdings. And today, that company, the foundation of that company became what is today Citigroup. So you can't imagine, which is a Dow Jones 30 company, you can't imagine a more stunning transformation driven by a strategic planning group than taking an old line packaging oriented manufacturing company into what is now one of the leading financial services companies. And there was innovation every step of the way in terms of how to identify the pruning to the portfolio, but more importantly, where to invest. So let me go on from there to number 2, which was in a mid-career and a mid-sized company. I mentioned that I was CEO of a company called Usco Logistics. Jackie, you can step to the next slide here. And Usco at the time when I joined was about $100 million privately held third-party logistics provider. And as I think you probably all know, third-party logistics companies are contracted by big companies to do supply chain work for them. And in this particular case, we were performing a service for Sun where we had a call center and a network of warehouses, and we would control the distribution of spare parts to a repair network to install in the embedded Sun customer base in the US, Canada, and Mexico. And we had 3 warehouses that would take the defectives that came back from the return process triage those, and then send them to repair vendors where it made economic sense to repair those parts, and then return those back into the network to be reused in the repair process. So that was the model. It worked well enough, but Sun in the late 90s came to us, and really to its entire network, the repair vendors. We were kind of a logistics manager, and then to the field technician force and UPS, and said, we got to do better than this. And they wanted a lower cost, increased velocity, lower inventory network. The parts were taking too much time in the process of being, pulled out by the technician, back to the warehouse, back to the repair vendor, back into the field control network, and then back to the parts. So we developed at no small cost what we call the virtual logistics network, and we essentially replaced our central warehousing with a web-based system that would tell the technician exactly where to send that repairable part, and tell the repair vendor where to send that part back into the good stock network, if you will. It took us 2 years to develop it, probably $5 to $6 million for an old line warehousing company. Believe me, I had to do a lot of significant discussions with my board about why this was a good thing to do, but it proved to be a great thing to do. From a customer Sun standpoint, they reduced their cost to deliver this service by over $8 million. Increased their parts velocity by 35 days, which lowered their inventory investment by $40 million. And this was a launching point to really burnish our reputation in the industry. And we grew, rapidly over 5 years. It was a critical factor in a company called Kuhn & Nagel deciding to buy us in 2000. But most importantly, Sun, which was then called the dot in .com, picked our solution of among 1,000 applications of the internet to drive value in the year 2000. And we won the award. We were brought out to Santa Clara to get the award on New Year's Eve. It was a great moment and a great solution, and really very proud. And it was innovation all around, including having the guts to say, we're going to walk away from our old business model and totally recreate ourselves with this virtual logistics network. Next slide, Jackie. So the last thing is drawn from my current focus, which, as I said, is really helping small promising ideas get launched. Next slide. So about 5 years ago, I was introduced to a company called A-Lung, and A-Lung makes a product that is really an alternative to invasive mechanical ventilation, which is the primary therapy to treat people in acute respiratory distress syndrome. The product's called Hemalung. I was attracted to this technology because my father had been intubated in the late 90s, and I saw how ghastly that process was. I remember the moment where the doctors told me, okay, we have to take him off the ventilator. There's some percentage chance where he may die in the process. I didn't tell my stepmother this, but I said, okay, let's take him off. But when I saw this technology, I said, there is a better way. So I began investing in it. I'm now on the board. I have a call when this call ends with them. What's happened because of the COVID-19, and I thought this would be a relevant story to tell all of you, we become now a real viable alternative to a ventilator to the most acutely distressed COVID-19 patients, the patients whose lungs are severely compromised. And we are a much more benign treatment than a ventilator to help people like this. So we have an LOI with a strategic investor that predated this because we had made a lot of progress. And we've treated over 1,000 patients around the world with our technology. But innovating in the medical device space in the United States is very challenging because of our FDA requirements. But just this week, we received emergency use authorization by the FDA to treat COVID-19 patients using our therapy. And we've now used it on 10 different patients with great results. So a little glimmer of hope. You probably are hearing about this first. You could go on the website of A-Lung and learn about the HemoLung and probably see some video clips of some of our success stories that we've recently been posted. We're getting a lot of play now because, you know, everybody's struggling to find a therapy. So another example, again, driven by something that I saw happen to my father that made me curious as to, is there a better way? And when I saw something, I jumped all over it and have been fortunate to be part of the investor team that is bringing this technology to life. So 3 different kinds of innovation. Hopefully, again, they reinforce the idea of the vision, the imagination, but most of all, the persistence, because this A-Lung has been under development, as I say here, for 12 years. So it's met its moment with COVID-19, but it's been 12 years in the making, and that's, you know, what you have to be prepared for. So, Cheryl, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Bob. That was fantastic. And I think Jackie is going to open up the conversation to questions from all of you, but I wanted to thank Bob and just, you know, point out that beyond theory and beyond processes and templates, this is a conversation about how the real world works, whether you need to raise money or bring on partners or solve any of the complicated problems that life presents. You, Bob, if I can start with a question, you're in a unique position, not only having accomplished so much, but now you're an investor. Can you talk a little bit about what you look for in individuals and teams that make them a good bet?
That's a great question. You know, I'm on a learning journey myself as kind of an investor as opposed to an operator. I've been an operator all my life, and I'm learning new skills because I tend to be a kind of a hands-on person, but I'm trying to be now more of a mentor type. But you know, I think the first thing I look for is an idea that captures my imagination, that I think is unique, but also is aimed at something that has some real scale to it. Is not a niche solution, but really has some far-reaching, you know, upside, and could be a very large and substantial opportunity. And then, but probably the most important thing I've learned is the value of the jockey, so to speak, the entrepreneur who is championing this. And, you know, first of all, do they have real entrepreneurial DNA? And there's ways I go about trying to assess that. But B, are they willing to engage in sort of a mentorship relationship with me, so that they, you know, are they seeking guidance? Are they looking to grow? Are they looking for help? And so it's a little bit of a selfish need on my part, but I feel like if I'm going to put my money to work, I want to be working with someone, not that I'm going to micromanage, but someone who is open to a growth journey to help make them more successful. So, you know, those are, you know, and I typically want to see someone who has a product. It's not a PowerPoint presentation, but they have a product, and they have either some demonstrated customers or are in pretty far into the process of getting customers to kind of sign up to use their product or service.
Thank you so much for that, Bob, for sharing all of that with us. So before we do get too far into the Q&As, I do want to spend just a couple of minutes going over the admissions requirements for this program, just so that you have them. So as with any program at ASU, or really any program that you would be applying to, typically you'll need to provide us a copy of your transcripts. ASU does allow you to submit your unofficial transcripts through the online application. So that is what we do recommend initially when you submit your application. If you are an international student and you need to meet the English proficiency requirement, one thing to keep in mind right now, ASU is currently accepting the Duolingo English test to satisfy English proficiency. It's a great option to look at if you are looking for English proficiency test that you can complete at home from your computer, as long as you have access to audio and video capabilities. You'll also need to submit an up-to-date copy of your resume, along with a letter of intent. The letter of intent should be no more than 3 pages or so, double-spaced. And it's really just an opportunity for you to introduce yourself to the program faculty, to talk about what brought you to MSIVD and what you hope that you would take away from the program. So we do have another application deadline coming up on June 30th. The link to our website at the bottom of the screen here will have a link where you can start the application if you're interested. We will definitely take more questions if you have them about the admissions requirements, but you can also feel free to reach out to me directly if you have any admissions questions as well. And then I did also just want to quickly touch on the tuition and fees for this program. The graphic on this screen here will show you the overview of what the cost would be for 1 semester in this program as an Arizona resident. Overall, the tuition cost for this program is going to be ASU's base tuition and fees based on your residency classification status, plus a $4,000 program fee per semester. So if you look at the tuition estimator that ASU has on its website, you're looking for the base tuition and fees for your residency, and then know that each semester you will have a program fee of $4,000 as well, specific to the MSIVD program. In addition to program scholarships, one great opportunity that you can look for if you are looking for funding, this is a STEM designated program. So there are scholarship programs out there geared specifically towards student in STEM programs. So that is a great place to look if you are looking for different scholarships and funding opportunities as well. So since we do just have a few minutes left here, I do see we have a couple of questions. So we are going to go ahead and take a look at those now. So here is one for Robert. Question for Robert: what was the earliest innovation idea you've ever had?
That's a good question. It's interesting. Back in my audit days, it was like I would say it was not in. No. Actually, here was the earliest one. Now, this is a great story. So to my sophomore and junior year, I worked in a Ford factory in Mahwah, New Jersey, and they bring in a bunch of summer kids, and then we get laid off in August. And a buddy of mine and I, who had both been laid off and were looking for something to do for the last few months before we went back to school, got the idea that, people's addresses are hard to see from their mailboxes. And so we decided to go door to door, and for $1 offered to paint the address of the house on the curb. And we were working at I would say an upper middle class neighborhood in New Jersey, Allendale, New Jersey. And we did quite well with this. Of course, being sophomores, when we made what we thought was plenty of money, we just knocked off. But we were working about 3 to 4 hours a day and living well. And then I got the bright idea to try to scale it and sell the town that we would paint every curb in the town for a fixed fee. And the city council gave us a fair hearing, but they decided against that idea. So that was probably my earliest, I would say, entrepreneurial venture.
That's a really great story. Thank you for sharing that. Let me see if we have any other questions. So we do have just about a minute left, but we do have one other question. What are some pillars of success that you follow?
Um, well, you know, I'd have to say I draw off my last 20 years, but really off my experience. I think leadership is a force multiplier. I truly believe that. And I think probably the two most important roles of a leader are to, with the help of the organization, define a clear strategy that is monitored for its success, but then to spend an incredible amount of time working on alignment within the organization around that strategy and strategic direction. And I think that that ports well into the entrepreneurial activity, because the entrepreneur has to have an idea of something that is compelling and motivating and exciting, an idea of how they're going to get it done. But then that determination is making sure that whatever resources you're bringing to bear in the problem are not working on extraneous things, but are really working on the central core mission. So to me, it's all about, you know, kind of strategy and alignment. They're probably the two most important pillars. And then, you know, every day coming to work with a notion of how do I make it better? How do I make it better? How do I make it better?
That's great. Thank you so much, Bob. So we are out of time now. I am going to bring up here my contact information. Please feel free to reach out if you do have any additional questions about the program. I'd be happy to set up a time to speak with you. If you do have any questions that we didn't have time to get to today, we will still get those questions after this, so I'll be sure to follow up with you to get you an answer. I hope that you took some great information away from this presentation. Thank you to Cheryl and to Bob both for being here with us today, and thank you to everyone that joined us. I hope to hear from you all soon. Have a great day.
Thanks, Bob, and thanks, everyone.
Thank you all. Good luck to you all.
Thank you.